prosecution outlined how accounting practices of Conley Sessions did not.
What kind of likeness is that?
If they were great artists, they'll be in a museum.
Evidence today may signal at least one.
You fucking fodder for cartoonists now?
And welcome to episode 58 of Gutter Boys. Gutter Boys is a small press comics podcast about the ins and the outs and the highs and the lows of small press comics. I am Cam Del Rosario, along with my co-host JB Rowe. And today is a special day. We are here as part of the official 2021 Autoptic Festival digital programming. Very happy to be here with them twice in a row. As a little change up to the intro, but similar to last year, we actually have festival organizer and Minneapolis-based cartoonist Pete Faecke here today with us. Pete's been skateboarding all summer, so instead of Pharrell being skateboard P, Pete is now skateboard P. Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't seen me on Instagram, that's why. I mean, I'm doing shit I couldn't do when I was a kid. I got my kick flips back. I landed a heel flip yesterday.
Oh, hell yeah.
Got a varial kick flip, 5-0s, 50-50s, nose slides. Yeah, I'm getting some shit.
Whoa,
hell yeah.
Man, Pete's doing the work.
This is what people are coming to Autoptic for. Yeah. Going to the X Games.
Oh, are you worried? Yeah. Are you worried about like falling and wrecking your wrists or anything though? Not to put that in your head, but does that ever cross your mind?
Not too much. I fucked my ankles up for sure. My ankles are like maybe fucked up forever now.
Oh shit.
But good. I mean, I wear a ankle brace when I skate. I just turned 29, right? So I just I can't fucking bounce back like I used to. If I'm falling, usually I'm good enough now where I'm not falling as much, and I'm not usually falling on my hands too much. But like once in a while, you'll fucking get them, and then it like turns into a magnet, and you just keep falling on them. So I got some wrist guards when that happens, but most days it's no big deal. You know, I'm getting better at like skating within my zone and playing it more or less safe as you can.
You should go out there just fully geared up, like elbow pads, knee pads.
I went out with Johnny Sampson in Chicago. I was in Chicago last week, and I went out skating with him, and he had full gear. But he's like in his 40s, and he's skating bowls. So
shit, you know, I didn't know Johnny Sampson was a skater. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to do like I'm bringing my board to Cake next time, and I'm trying to like get like a Cake sesh because I think there's a bunch of cartoonists who skate, and we just like. There's a bunch of us out there. So I'm trying to do a Cake sesh. I'm trying to like do like a little park takeover and bring all the aging cartoonists with their skateboards.
Yeah, I'll come watch.
Are you going to bring it? Are you going to bring it to the trip?
Oh, he's not coming to the cabin.
Oh, you're not? For some reason, I assumed you were.
No,
okay.
I don't.
I wish you were.
I'm very, very broke right now, and I can't plan that far ahead during the pandemic with my day job.
That makes sense.
So.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, let's get on topic to why we're here today.
Let's get on topic.
On topic with Autoptic. Yeah, so the festival has been multi-parts this year, right? You all were doing something in May, if I'm not mistaken, and then we're finishing it up in August?
Yeah, we're actually going to do another one in fall. We're doing sort of like mini seasons year-round during the pandemic, and then this is like festival season. So this one is kind of twice the size. We're trying to go bigger than we went last year, and then we'll have another set of maybe like 4 or 5 smaller episodes in the fall.
Hell yeah. Well, we are very happy to have Jaime Hernandez on the back end of this episode.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Huge personal get for me. That guy's the god to me. So to be able to talk to Jaime was a dream come true, something that like I thought would be like the highlight of the show. And we did it, within 50 episodes. So I want to thank Pete for setting that up for us with Autoptic.
My pleasure.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. But more importantly, I want to talk about what else is going on because you're dropping content throughout the week. So what's happening? Today's Monday, the 23rd, when they're listening to this. We're not recording it on the 23rd, but yeah, act like it's the 23rd.
Yeah. This is day one. So today it's going to be Jaime with you guys. And then I have an interview with Pascal Girard, who just put a new book out with D&Q. It's like a maternity murder mystery is the pitch on that one. It's a new mom like going to solve a crime. Not describing it very well right now, but it's a great book. I really enjoyed reading it. And we had a cool conversation. And then local Blue Delaquanti is interviewed by Bob Algeo. Blue does the book Oh Human Star webcomic, and then you can get print copies of that one too. So one thing that's different this year from last year is you guys are not hosting every episode. So if you want to check out more of this, make sure to look up Autoptic in whatever your podcatcher is and go subscribe there because we got more coming on Wednesday and Friday too.
Yeah, and so this will be available in our feed, but all the other content, including this episode, will be in the Autoptic feed. Do you want to talk about what's coming later on in the week?
Yeah, Wednesday is going to be, I'm talking to Wang Pixon or Pix. She just put out a fantastic book. That was a really, really good conversation too. Really thoughtful artist. And then local Trung Le Nguyen, Trungles, another really, really good book. Somebody that we've been trying to get for a long time. And Josh Cotter is on Wednesday. He's talking to Sean Knickerbocker.
Hell yeah.
And then Friday, we've got a reading from Kyler Roberts. That'll be on the YouTube. And that's hosted by Rob Kirby, local legend. Leomi Sadler on Thick Lines. So we got another episode with another podcast this year. Part of Going Bigger, teaming up. And another reading from Shira Spector. So check out the YouTube. All of this will be on YouTube too, is just like simple, it'll be like a title card with a wave animation and you can listen to stuff there if you like it there. And then the readings are also going to be in the podcast feed as audio only versions. So if you just want to hear somebody read a comic without seeing it, I don't know, might be interesting. But there's an interview ahead of the reading too, so it should be cool.
Did Kyler do readings from Begging Chart?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, great book. I actually just finished it not too long ago. Great book. So looking forward to that. Hell yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, I know with the pandemic casting a shadow, you don't really know too much, but Autoptic, the future of Autoptic, it's going to go on into the fall with more digital content. Anything planned after that the listeners should look out for?
Yeah, follow us on socials and get on the email list or whatever you can do to stay current. The plan is to be back in about a year for an in-person show. We still got our contract signed with the venue. They've been really, really good about rolling over and working with us. And, I think this is our postponements, I think, work better for them anyway. So we got a contract signed. We're planning on being back. In the meantime, I think we're going to keep trying to do more digital content and some of the more of those mini seasons we were talking about. I think that's it for right now.
Alrighty, awesome. So just to kind of put a bow on it, web addresses, social media, YouTube channel, drop all the links real quick, or at least, tell them what to search for.
Yeah, it's just Google Autoptic. I think that'll give you your best stuff, autoptic.org. That's a pretty good landing page. There should be a link to the email list there. So whenever we have a big announcement, there's always a big email that goes out. So that's a pretty good way to stay up to. And then I think it's Autoptic Fest on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We're on Facebook too, if you still use Facebook.
Cool. All right. Well, JB, you got anything before we wrap this up?
I'm still waiting on my friend Kimber to send me more information about their organization. They were on a trip, so they just got back. So we'll likely have details about that on the next episode with our buddy Nate Garcia's. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. And we'll be able to give you the lowdown on how to donate and sort of what the time frame will be for that.
Hell yeah. So yeah, stick around for that and our interview with Jaime Hernandez. And we want to thank Pete and Autoptic for, including us this year and for also coming on the show again. Check out all the content and we'll catch you after the break.
We'll be right back.
Floodland brings together a series of personal and natural disasters featured in comics by Australian cartoonist and cult hero Jonathan McBurney. Beginning with the protagonist's chronic illness, it relates a long period of bizarre artistic practices, awkward art school relationships, the brutal reality of the 9-to-5 grind of the submerging artist, and culminates in the massive flood in his hometown. The peripheral characters whose lives orbit the same places and occasionally overlap through mundane circumstances include Basquiat, an artist come superhero whose successes are vastly out of proportion with his talents, Picasso Minotaur, a brawny beefcake sculptor with fire in his belly and hate in his heart, and Kirby Kelly, a hapless and constantly flummoxed experiment gone wrong. Floodland is a 96-page hardcover available from arglebarglebooks.com. Check out jonathanmcburney.com and king_of_nails on Instagram for more beefcake, wrestling, and existential conundrums.
Rust Belt Review is a quarterly comics lit magazine featuring serialized and short-form comics from some of the most exciting cartoonists in the small press scene today. Volume 1 features work from Gutter alums M.S. Harkness, Audra Stang, and Caleb Orecchio, along with work by Andrew Greenstone, Sean Knickerbocker, and Juan Jose Fernandez. You can order your copy of Rust Belt Review today by going to rustbeltreview.org. Enter in promo code GUTTER to receive $2 off your order. Again, that website is rustbeltreview.org, promo code GUTTER.
Now, back to our program.
And welcome back to the show. We are joined finally with our very special guest today as part of the Autoptic 2021 lineup. We are joined by very well-known, internationally renowned Jaime Hernandez to talk a little bit about his new book, which will be out on August 3rd.
August 3rd, Queen of the Ring comes out, and if this airs after August 3rd and you don't have it, what are you doing?
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely pick this one up. I mean, this is a wonderful book. I mean, it is just the drawings in it are just fantastic. I've been staring at them for the last 2 days, nonstop. But anyway, how are you doing today?
Me?
Yeah. Sorry, Jaime. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good.
So Jaime is joining us this morning. Are you still in Oxnard? Or are you in LA now? Where are you at these days?
I'm in Hollywood now.
Hollywood. Okay. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. Are you liking that?
I'm loving it. I've always wanted to live in Hollywood, but I thought I was going to get as far as Pasadena. But now I'm living in Hollywood. Yeah.
Very awesome. Are you right in the middle of everything?
Yeah. A lot of walking stuff to walk to, which I like.
Hell yeah. We did want to take a different approach with this episode and talk mainly about wrestling since the book is about wrestling. And it was 40 years worth of drawings. And one thing I did want to touch base on is throughout the book, we got a chance to look over it. You did say that this was all personal drawings and you didn't intend to show anybody. So I do want to just ask, what made you decide to finally share this with the world?
Well, I always liked the work I was doing, but I just never thought anyone would care, And so I always thought like maybe, hey, one day I'll make a book about this, And it wasn't until Katie kind of said, look, I'm one of the few people who have ever seen this stuff. I think it's kind of unfair that I get to see it and the rest of the world doesn't. And I thought, well, that's cool because I always kind of wanted to make a book of it, but I just was too lazy, to approach anyone to do it. And so that was good timing, and, part of it was scary because this stuff I never thought anyone would see. It was just my own personal stuff that I would do when I wasn't doing Love and Rockets. And I was just doing it for myself. So there was no editing involved, no one not thinking about an audience, even if it kind of looks the same as like I put the same amount of work as I do my Love and Rocket stuff. But it was a little different because I kind of didn't care about editors or anything, or readers. So I don't know. And it was just a good time to do it because I sit there sometimes and go, man, I am such a failure as an artist. I don't do anything outside of Love and Rockets, blah, 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 boo-hoo for me. And then I realized, oh, this is totally outside of Love and Rockets. So that was also a boost.
Absolutely. And the book looks great. Like, do you have more nerves putting it out since it is so personal and close to you? As you know, it's kind of like pretty much your personal sketchbooks and, you know, the artwork that you work on in your own time, like you mentioned. Yeah,
I was scared at first because I thought, you know, okay, what are they going to think I'm a weirdo or what? And then I thought, well, who cares? You know, but at first I was nervous because like I said, it wasn't meant for anyone to see but me, you know, but then I got over it and I'm kind of excited to hear what people think.
No, for sure. And, you know, so obviously these are 4 decades worth of drawings. So wrestling is the focal point of the book. And wrestling has even showed up in Love and Rockets. I mean, it's obvious that both you and your brothers are fans. Is this something that you keep up with like pretty regularly? Like as far as like currently watching like what's on TV with wrestling? Like how do you consume wrestling nowadays?
You know, I check the channels, you know, I know which wrestling shows are on, you know, weekly. And I check in on them sometimes, but I mostly like to check YouTube because I like to look for videos of you know, backwoods wrestling. I like the really small federations, you know, where they have a ring in the parking lot, you know,
right? Yeah,
and stuff like that. And the unknown stars. Some of them have become big stars, gone to WWE or something else, but you know, they started out in someone's backyard or stuff like that. I always like the underdog stuff, like when WWF, you know, exploded. I kind of liked it, but then I went to WCW because it was the lesser superstar one, you know, even if it tried just as hard. So I guess I've always gone for the underdog thing, you know.
So are you pretty in tune with like the independent scene? Like that's kind of what you're seeking out nowadays?
I guess in tune, meaning I just like to check it out, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's so many that, you know, I don't even know names or anything. So I mostly check out the women, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's kind of like when I was little or younger and, you know, a wrestling show, you were lucky to get a women's match. You know, so I sat there a lot of boring stuff or just wrestlers I didn't care about, just waiting like, hey, maybe they'll have a women's match this week. And, you know, and then I'm there for 4 months just watching, you know. So I saw a lot of wrestling because I was waiting for something else.
Did you ever get into the like 80s Japanese women's wrestling scene?
Yeah. We had a like a TV station, what they call in those days UHF channels, you know.
Yeah.
And there was one that was a half Japanese, half Spanish station, and they would show the women's stuff in the mid 70s. But, you know, I didn't have my own TV, so I had to sit there in the living room and go, Ma, can I watch this? And she'd go, sure. And she'd be ironing, and the whole family would be sitting there watching. And I would just be like, God, why don't you guys leave me alone? But yeah, I kind of got into that. And then just odd chat in those days, you know, the birth of cable, just a lot of odd stations would show stuff like, you know, that's how I learned about like the hardcore wrestling stuff. That was almost by accident. You know, I didn't know that stuff existed. All the Sabu kind of stuff. ECW, that's what I couldn't think of it. And then there was WEW, the women's one. You know, I would just find them like 1:30 in the morning on some odd channel and stuff. So that's kind of the fun thing. Now it's YouTube I do that with. You know, I just search for just the weirdest federations because I like those best because they seem to try harder, you know.
Have you seen videos from that promotion called Zona 23?
No.
It's kind of the hardcore stuff, but It's in like a junkyard, the kind of stuff you like, but they do crazy stuff. There's women's wrestlers, but it's pretty
it's brutal.
It's pretty brutal. So if you don't like blood and stuff, I don't know if I would recommend it. Like they're power bombing each other through like car windshields and stuff. So your mileage may vary, but if you're looking for something fun in a junkyard, I would check that out.
Sometimes that's fun, and then after a while, you're kind of like, okay, this guy doesn't even hide his blades, you know. Using on this guy, you know, it's no longer a hidden thing.
Were you watching throughout the 90s, like when it really blew up? Like I know Hulk Hogan was like in the 80s, but like when like The Rock and Stone Cold, were you in all that? I read a
Yeah, a lot of times I would stop watching, and then something would bring me back. Like I would just go like, God, I haven't checked this out in 5 years. And then there'd be something new going on, and I'd go, wow, it's changed in the last 5 years. Yeah. You know, and I really got into that time when they were hiring soap opera writers.
Yeah.
You know, and everything was a story. And I thought that was very clever. I thought they did really well with those. And then, what was it? WCW stole the writers or something because they paid them more or something. So they had all the fantastic storylines. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a time that I don't think it'll ever happen again in the wrestling business. You know, I think for a lot of reasons, but I don't think there's that like internal competition anymore that's taken seriously at that level anymore.
Yeah.
But I do think, like you said, to me, you know, the fun of it is the storylines, the over the top characters, and it almost seems like they're moving away from that. It seems like everybody wants to be like a better athlete in the ring.
Yeah.
With the modern product. So, do you enjoy that, or are you mainly into the showman side of it?
It's hard to say because all the strutting and boasting by the wrestlers now seem to be taken more seriously than when I was watching it in the 70s or something. You know, I really enjoyed a heel like, you know, boasting in an interview and then getting their ass kicked. You know? And, you know, and I just love that sense of humor that only wrestling has. You know, nowhere else in the world has it. I just see a lot less of it now because the fan base has changed. The way younger kids look at it is more of a badass thing than a clown thing, you know? And it's not to say that I only like the clown stuff, but, you know, I just had the best time listening to a Flair interview in the 80s, you know, or something even earlier than that. So like some Deep South wrestling stuff where some guy in a cowboy hat is boasting and strutting around and just that stuff was just funner for me.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I feel like the West Coast in Los Angeles and in California in general, a lot of the wrestling heels that came out of that territory were very much into the what we know as the classic heel, the very over the top, veering towards feminine, boastful, attractive guys like Gorgeous George and classy Freddie Blassie. That's the dudes that would strut out and it would rile the crowd up, both because like they were too boastful and also because they were kind of, I guess, not classical men, quote unquote. Like masculinity was very much kind of thrown out the window at times. And we see that today, granted a little more twisted. Like I feel like Goldust was, I don't know if you remember Goldust from WWF. Sure. But he kind of took that gimmick and turned it on its head in a way. And really playing on people's, I guess, bordering on homophobia, basically.
Right. Yeah. That's usually my favorite stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Have you heard of PWG out there, Jaime?
PWG? No.
It's based out of Reseda.
Yeah, Reseda. I think they moved to the Globe Theater in LA now because their old building got torn down. Yeah. But it stands for Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and it's for a while there, for like the late 2010s, like the last 5 years, it was probably the best wrestling in the world. If you ever get a chance, though, check it out. Like, go to a show. I know that like it's kind of weird. Like a lot of celebrities and stuff go. I know it was like a fun thing to do for a while, but if you ever hear of a show around, I would recommend it because I think you'd enjoy yourself at least.
Oh, cool. That's Reseda, the Valley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would do a lot of like hardcore intergender matches.
Oh, those are always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it's one of those setups where like there's no barrier, so like the fans like run and like pound on the ring, but it's really strange because like I saw a statistic recently that was like pretty much out of the last like 10 years, like every PWG champion has went to WWE, so they always get the stars before they're the stars too.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, but yeah, that's a pretty fun promotion that's out there. I know that there was like Championship Wrestling of Hollywood going on for a while that looked pretty fun, but I'd never really seen a whole show.
Yeah, and it's and they film in Port Hueneme, which is Oxnard, basically where I'm from. Which I thought was amazing. I mean, they still say it's from Hollywood, but it says next taping, Port Hueneme, and I'm like, they're in Oxnard. Well, and then in that show they moved it to 1 a.m, and I'm old, so I can't stay up, but I love the small shows and all that. Yeah.
Does your brother Gilbert still watch? I recently found an old Comics Journal issue where they interviewed the wives of a bunch of cartoonists, and Carol was interviewed there, and they were asking about habits, and she seemed embarrassed by the verbiage in the interview, but she was like, "Yeah, we have our shows we watch every Monday and Thursday. That's our wrestling nights." Is he still in tune with wrestling?
Yeah, it was actually more her.
Oh, okay.
Gilbert and I one day. We just started telling her about wrestling and about the wrestling world and all this stuff. And she just was like, what? And so she really got into it. And so he got into WWF and then turned to WCW, and it was kind of mostly her. And then we would all go to shows in LA, and it was fun time.
Hell yeah. So who are some of your favorite all-time wrestlers?
Oh, well, you got Blassie, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw Blassie when I was a little kid in the 60s, a medium-sized kid in the 70s, and then up till he was, manager and stuff.
That's awesome.
So he was always, doing something. All he had to do was open his mouth, and I was entertained. He didn't have to wrestle. In the early 70s, he had the thing where he would bite, and the audience would just go, bite, Freddie, bite, Freddie, bite. This was in LA at the Olympic Auditorium. That was the wrestling I got on my TV. So Blassie, I got to see Piper in the 70s because he took LA over, single-handedly, and just turned the place upside down. And that was fun. Who else do I like? There's a lot of them, all from different generations, because, I started watching in the mid 60s, and then, guys like Bobo Brazil and Blassie and the Destroyer and guys like that. By the mid 70s, it was Piper and Keith Franks, who became Adrian Adonis, because they started to come to Oxnard. They started to wrestle in Oxnard. And that was when I first saw my first live matches.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a lot of fun. Let's see. So many. Gee whiz. Flair. Of course I love Flair.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how
he's
that guy
the prototype,
could,
the perfect pro wrestler.
Yeah. I don't know how he was able to always, when he had a suit on, and his shades and talking mess, and then someone would come and knock him out, how his shoe always flew off. He always just laying there, knocked out. But I guess that takes real talent.
Yeah, Flair was a bump machine. That guy could flop around the ring like no one's business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And someone was talking about this recently, that they were saying, just to get the fans excited, all they had to do was give Flair and Dusty Rhodes a mic. And those two guys would just carry the night,
Mm-hmm.
And that was the best stuff for me. Pretty soon the wrestling was the background stuff,
Yeah.
And the personalities were forefront.
I don't know if you've seen much newer WWE, but Ric Flair's daughter's been around the last 5 or 6 years, and wearing the robes and everything.
Yeah.
And she's awesome.
Yeah. And she just lost last night or something.
Oh, yeah. She did. Yeah. I watched all the pay-per-views and everything this weekend because it was the first time with the crowd. And it really is crazy how much the crowd does add to a wrestling event. It just felt like a completely different show than the stuff that's been on the past year with the screens.
Yeah.
So did you ever get a chance to meet any of these wrestlers? I know Blassie had a tie to comics through Glenn Bray from the Fantagraphics book I read. They apparently did like a record and stuff together. Did you ever get a chance to meet any of these guys?
I never met Blassie. I know Glenn Bray really well, and he's told me millions of stories, But I met John Tolas, who was the big rival to Blassie in the early 70s, and I introduced myself, and I called him the Maniac, and he goes, "What's my name?" And I go, I mean the Golden Greek. And he was like, "That's better." And all of a sudden, he's a nice guy. But I remember, being a 10-year-old watching the Tolas Blassie feud and hating Tolas so much that I couldn't picture him being a baby and them saying, "Let's name him Jonathan." I remember I was just hated him so much. So what happens when you become an adult? You love him. Because he did so much for my growing up. But let's see. I've met a few, but just to take the pictures, because there was at the time of the in the mid '80s when the WWF or WCW would come to town. In the back behind the stands, some of the wrestlers just hanging out, talking to fans or stuff. So you got to go and get your picture taken, and stuff like that. So that was kind of fun. I didn't know really what to say to them.
Right.
Like, I really hated you when I was a kid. Yeah.
Right.
I've never heard that one before. But, yeah.
So I did want to touch on this because it was part of the interview that was, the text in the new book. Mm-hmm. You did mention that originally you did a book, Whoa Nelly. It was 3 issues that was set in the Love and Rockets universe. But you did mention that originally Whoa Nelly was supposed to be what this book was. So why did you abandon that and go with a more narrative, typical comic structure for Whoa Nelly?
Yeah. One of the reasons was because it was originally supposed to be set up like a magazine, articles, photos, and titles, Mm-hmm. But by the time I got to that, I go, I'm not going to write no articles. What's wrong with me? I'm not a writer like that, And so, and then the other reason was I didn't think people would accept it on its own terms, as just wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of made it a continuity, have some continuity from Love and Rockets in it. And that's why it turned out the way it did. But originally it was supposed to just be, here's wrestling pictures, here's a fake article about this match, blah, blah, blah. And, but I junked that. But I was able to do it this time,
Right, for sure. And do you think that you'll ever do another wrestling related story in Love and Rockets? Or do you think that's past?
It's really interesting because since this thing was such a private thing originally, I'm very curious to see where my interests will lie after, knowing that it's like out there and it's no longer a secret, I guess, for lack of a better term. So will I go back to it, or do I need to go back to it? Because now you've seen it all. Now it's all out there. So I'm really curious to see what where my brain will take me, later. Like maybe it's like, well, I don't want to draw this anymore. I already did it, or like, oh boy, I got more ideas for it. I haven't gotten there yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, and how far ahead of schedule do you stay? You all are working on volume 4 right now. I want to say there's 9 or 10 issues out. I might be misspoken there, but how far ahead do you stay ahead of production schedule?
Pretty much I'm drawing 11 right now. Gilbert's drawing 11. It's due in a month or 2. I know it's coming out in the fall, and there's not too much time between turning in the art and publishing it. So,
Gotcha.
So I would say late summer, early fall is the next one, and then I think about the the next one, like issue 12. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, this stuff is pretty much just like close to as close to the fans as it is to us. Like we're almost as much as we do by this point.
Has it always been that way, or is that just something that's happened, as time has progressed?
Yeah, for me, it has. Gilbert has a million ideas going at one time. Like 5 years planned. Before. I'm usually most of the time I'm usually just like, okay, what's the next issue? Okay, Maggie's been in a bad mood. Okay, we'll make a story about her bad mood. That's usually how I think about it. It's rare that I'm thinking about an epic ending. Sometimes I am, but rarely.
Well, before we get into questions on the back end, I do want to talk to you about like current comics in the scene just a little bit. But JB, do you have anything you want to talk about wrestling wise before we get into that?
Yes, I have a couple of other things here.
Go for it.
So when I was a kid, when I was younger, after Sunday school, every day, me and a bunch of fools would get together and take over one of the back rooms and wrestle each other with like a pretend mat and like folding chairs. Did you and your brothers ever do stuff like that?
I remember the kids in the neighborhood wrestling, and then you do fake moves and stuff like that, but not a lot. I was always one of the smaller cousins, and so they were like, "No, don't let him wrestle. He'll cry." That kind of thing. But yeah, I remember my cousins and my brothers all trying to be Bobo Brazil or whatever. And I remember even my cousin gave a guy a real headbutt.
Oh my God.
And it hurt him more than the guy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So.
That's amazing. Usually the prized horse of the group would be the smallest kid because we could pick them up and do all kinds of moves on them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I was kind of that. And then I would hurt myself and cry, and they'd go, "All right, he's out of here." But I'd want to finish.
Were there any particular like wrestling moves that you really enjoy drawing? Because I feel like with wrestling, since it is such a physical sport, for lack of a better term, it is kind of difficult to replicate those on the page in a 2D space.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, I guess I think about it like a photographer catching the best moment, like a head scissors or if someone's flying, they're in the air.
Yeah. Right.
A headlock is always a good one because they don't move much.
Right. Yeah.
But doing some kind of high flying fancy move, it's like the photographer taking 12 shots and he has to pick one,
right?
That kind of represents that move, So yeah, that's how I look at it when I draw it.
And so, what were your like favorite moves to draw? I know you mentioned the headlock. That's a good one.
Yeah. And I was watching recently and going, do they still do headlocks?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, baby.
I was like, that was when I was a kid. Do they still use that? Or do people boo or say boring?
No, they're fundamentals. They're part of the basics of wrestling.
Right. Yeah, I like to draw pile drivers. I like to draw because there's a certain air movement, even if it's still. What else I like to draw? I like a lot of the tangled ones, like a tangled a leg lock or something.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's just fun to draw interlocking parts.
Yeah.
And I found out that a lot of when I do a sex scene, I go, this is kind of like drawing a wrestling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. And so it just, being such a fan and drawing that stuff since I was little taught me a lot about action poses and anatomy, interlocking body parts,
Yeah.
Just because I liked to watch and then I tried to draw what those wrestlers were doing, stuff like that.
That makes a lot of sense. Looking at your body of work, I don't know. It's very clear that you have such a understanding and grasp of like human anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense that all of that comes from drawing wrestlers, because all you're doing is studying anatomy in that case. You know, it's all about that physicality of the human body.
Yeah. I remember stripping my G.I. Joes of their clothes and putting them in wrestling positions.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And my brother would go, "What are you doing?"
Did you ever own any of those AWA Remco figures from the 70s and 80s?
The wrestling ones?
Yes.
No, because I'm older than you guys, so by that time I wasn't doing that as much. You know, especially by the 80s, I wasn't really buying a lot of figures and stuff. Yeah.
But you knew about them, though.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to. Are you thinking about the rubber ones, the WWF?
No, so this line would have been before the LJN WWF figures. They almost look like He-Man figures, but they had like these soft rubbery heads, and there was Ric Flair. They did the Road Warriors. They did Kurt Hennig before he was Mr. Perfect. A couple of other guys that ended up going to WWF a decade later anyway, but I'm trying to think if there were
I think I know which ones you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, speaking of toys, this is kind of off topic, and there may have been some. Have there ever been Love and Rockets toys or statues? I feel like that's something that people do in comics, but I don't know if I've seen any.
That's what I'd like to do. I've just never been approached.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, it'd be cool to. Yeah, I mean, I would assume, I know Gary Painter's had figures, Klaus has done it. I mean, Ware's done it. It makes sense that you all would have had it by now.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody's approached you.
I don't know. For some reason, Gilbert and I were all left off the merchandise train. We were never approached for stuff like that. And I was too lazy to go get it myself, and I didn't know how to be a businessman and find out how to get it done. But, I was kind of like, wow, they got toys. You think that guy would come and ask me? No.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Maybe you could, maybe somebody will hear this and, get in touch with you, or, I don't know how you feel about Kickstarter, but I feel like that would be a hit for you if you ever wanted to get it together.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I would love a wrestling figure of one of your characters.
I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you heard it here, folks. Somebody get in touch. Let's make this happen.
Yeah, for real.
Do you have any favorite matches that you rewatch somewhat often, Jaime?
Me?
Yeah.
Gee whiz. That's a toughie. Some of my favorite matches were back in the day when they didn't stay recorded. They didn't keep them, out there.
Right, right.
To do. I had favorite wrestlers who...
Gotcha.
Who I liked to watch them wrestle. It was not so much the match. It was like, one of my favorite things about wrestling is when someone's going to have a wedding.
Yeah.
and everything is set up and everything is nice. And someone's going to come in and ruin it. Those things, man, give me a bellyache, man. I'm just like, this is the best. There's nothing like this in the world.
Hell yeah.
Well, WWE is definitely keeping that tradition strong.
I was going to say, it seems like every 5 years it happens. Yeah. So,
and all the heel has to do is just walk in calmly, and everyone starts to panic, and they're like, "No, I'm just here. And then pretty soon, people are thrown through the sets and stuff.
Well, before we get into listener questions, I do want to kind of just change gears into comics. Do you keep up with a lot of what's going on presently, or is it just something that you watch passively?
Yeah, I'm just I just don't have the energy to look for new stuff. Sometimes it comes my way, sometimes it's by accident, but I'm just I've been doing this so long that I just care about what I'm doing.
Right.
And then once in a while someone comes along and I'm like, oh wow, this is good. Where was I? Well, you were in your room drawing your comics.
Are there any, newer cartoonists that you would want to, talk about enjoying, just throw some names out there?
Sure. Of course, there's Katie Skelly, that I'm playing favorites there. there's that kid that, see, I don't even know his name.
Is it Jasper?
Yeah, just turned 20 years old.
Oh,
yeah, yeah. We've had him on Dynamite Diva. Yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah, I just discovered him not 2 weeks ago. And he reminds me of a time when the alternative boom in the 80s reminds me a lot of that stuff. And I love his energy, and his humor and stuff. And, he's 20 years old. We'll see how long before he burns out.
Yeah, we joke with him all the time because I have a group chat with him in it. We're like, you need to slow down because otherwise you're going to be done in 3 years and doing just illustration work.
Right. Or like, hey, there's money in animation. Last time you ever hear of that person. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had any animation offers? Because, I mean, that's one thing. You've stayed true to comics your entire career.
Yeah. Just like offers to do my stuff. And when they ask me, first thing I think of is live action. And then halfway through the conversation, I realized, oh, they're talking about a cartoon. I never think about a cartoon when I'm doing my stuff. But once or twice people have said, I would love if you would do some character creations, for us. Or something like that. And I'll go like, yeah, maybe. And then I forget. Yeah.
Well, you did mention like a live action adaptation. Obviously, you're going to be close to your own work. Do you have any dream casting for those characters if there was to be a live action adaptation of your work?
Oh, I would think of, I can only think of unknowns, because nobody fits,
Right.
Once in a while, I'll see someone, they go, hey, they can play this one minor character that has one speaking part, or something like that, once in a while. But as far as like a Maggie and a Hopi, I don't think they exist, Of course they do, but I can't picture it. It's just too close to me, and I can't think of someone else making it theirs,
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you got to let the character grow. You got to let the actor grow and let him, do this. And I go, well, what if they become less Maggie? So that's always a tough choice for me of making those decisions.
Alrighty. Jaime, we did actually get a lot of questions for you, record-breaking amount. However, because there were so many, we just went ahead and picked a few that would kind of cover the bases of what everyone was trying to ask. JB, do you want to ask the first one?
All right, first question comes from friend of the show, Nate Garcia Cartoons. What's up, Nate? Jaime, you should check out his work. Awesome. I think you'd dig it.
He's another 18-year-old wonderkin.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
He asked, as per usual, okay, what did you have for breakfast today? And be honest.
I had a glass of orange juice, or half a glass because I used up the rest of it, and a bowl of Morning Oat Crunch cereal.
Oh.
Are you a pulp person or no pulp?
Either one. Okay. I noticed there's a lot less pulp in orange juice that I can find, So, I don't know. Either one.
Hell yeah. Alrighty, next question came from Andrew Lorenzi. Andrew asked, Jaime, how has making comics changed for you over the years?
Hopefully not too much, because I want to keep it as lively as possible still. I'm still a little kid doing it. But how it's changed is keeping up with the times or not keeping up with the times. There's so much water under the bridge, so much stuff that was kind of new in the early days. People have caught up. And so I have to think about keeping it fresh, even if there's 20 other characters out there like them. And it's kind of a juggling act. And I just still try to keep it fresh, but our original way of doing it was Gilbert and I really early on, people would go, God, Love and Rockets is so original. And I go, well, I would prefer to say it's good than original. Because, it's hard, you're going to kill yourself trying to be original. But all we focused on was trying to do it better than the next guy,
And kind of before I get into the next question, I kind of want to ask, looking back on it, you've had decades, the body of work spans decades. Are you happy with the legacy of Love and Rockets, from your side of things?
Yeah, I am. It's funny how in the last 40 years I saw us go from hot newcomers to well, this isn't as cool as people said it was, to they're not the new kids on the block anymore, let's read this comic instead, to hey, there's a bunch of people over in Minnesota that are really into your work, have rediscovered your work, and I'm like, oh, cool. And then going back to like, oh, he did the best collection. This is the best book possible. And then like, okay, now let's go somewhere else because that book's over,
Mm-hmm.
And then someone going, oh, Mr. Hernandez, you're an icon. And then 2 weeks later, you're not. So overall, yes, I really like Legacy, and I've seen the ups and downs, and they're all fine. I have no regrets.
Good.
Awesome. RJ Casey writes, what's up, RJ? He asked, how does he feel about the Dodgers' chances this year?
Speaking of RJ, there's a Dodger that me and friends call RJ. I think they got a good chance. According to yesterday's game, doesn't look like it. But, yeah, right now them and the Giants are battling for who's the best in the league. Blah blah blah. But I think they do. I mean, if they don't, then I've seen it after all these years.
And his follow-up question: do you think you'll ever make a baseball comic?
Probably not a full baseball comic, but I like drawing baseball. I did one story about softball, which same thing, same action poses. And then I had this story where Angel and her dad are out in the park pitching and hitting. So that stuff is fun for me. So a whole baseball comic, I don't know if I have enough in me to do a whole comic.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty big ask.
Yeah. Alrighty. Margot Dent wrote in and asked, what do you think is the most successful relationship in Love and Rockets?
Are you talking about characters' relationships or the relationship to something else? I mean, I'm
going to assume they meant like relationships amongst the characters.
Amongst the characters. Successful? All of them. Well, a pretty successful one that's starting to become rocky is Maggie and Ray. Mm-hmm. It seems like they've become complacent old folks. Yet there's stuff always coming up, to bring doubts. Like after Is This How You See Me? Maggie has to live with the fact that she was going to cheat on him. She didn't do it successfully, but that's always in the back of her mind. And the fact that he kind of knows but doesn't know. It's just all this stuff going on in their heads and in my head. But so far, their relationship is better than Maggie and Hopi's.
For sure. Hell yeah.
All right. Instagram user Paul Along the Watchtower asked, favorite Lucha mask?
Let's see. Maybe I kind of liked Mil Mascara's mask when he had the big teeth, the big grin with the sharp teeth. Maybe.
That's a good one.
It's real toughy. When I was a kid, I loved the Destroyer's mask.
Yes, I was going to say that you mentioned him before, and that is like such a classic look.
Yeah.
Like that blue mask with the red outlines.
Yeah. I met Dick Beyer. Is that his name?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I met him in an elevator in Vegas, and I did that thing. By the way, Mr. Beyer, you were my first wrestling hero when I was 5 years old or whatever. And he was just like, oh, that's great. Oh, that was a long time ago. Ha, ha, ha. He was very grateful. But I felt bad talking to him as a guy without a mask. It's kind of like the sacredness of the mystery of you wear a mask because it's a secret identity thing. And there I was calling him out without his mask. And I felt like I betrayed the whole, the whole thing. There was another time. Now I'm remembering meeting wrestlers. I was living in LA and I saw Gene LaBelle, who was a famous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he was big in LA. The LaBelles ran, wrestling there, and I saw him eating at a cafe, and I ran home and I got my 8x10 of the Hangman, which was one of his alter egos. back in the day, although I didn't know it till I was older. And I stupidly, he and his wife come out of the thing at night, and I'm like, Mr. LaBelle, could you sign? And I could tell I pissed him off, but he signed it. He goes, I will sign this for my friend, Mr. Hangman. You go, man. And I felt bad then too. Like, how could I was calling him out for being a secret guy,
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that does show how times have changed, because stuff like that was taken very, very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember when what's his name? He was in WCW before WWE. Famous guy,
Rey Mysterio.
The guy, yeah, Rey Mysterio.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when he and Eddie Guerrero had that big feud in WCW, and he had to go to the hospital, and they had to cut his mask off to work on him. And I just remember one of the announcers, I can't remember, just go, "Oh my God, that's sacred in Mexico. You can't do that to him." And I felt so good that they were keeping the old way.
Yeah, for real. I think when he got unmasked, that was kind of a big deal too.
Yeah, like I remember he went to WWE and they wanted to put him back under a mask, and like people in Mexico were like, "No, you've lost it." And it would insult, the tradition if you put it back on.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess money talks,
Yeah. Rey Mysterio gets a pass. Yeah.
Alrighty, next question came from Instagram user Blues Drive Monster 95. What were your parents' reactions to your stories, specifically stories that center on Izzy?
My mom was just happy we had jobs. I swear, that's it.
That's awesome.
She was just, you do comics, because she, turned us on to comics and stuff like that. And she was just happy we didn't become street thugs or whatever,
And I do feel like you bring that up a lot in interviews when talking about, how you came to comics. There were always comics around your home. So did your parents actually read your work since they were fans of comics, your mom specifically?
My mom did. My dad died when I was younger, so I don't think he ever got into what we were doing. But he was the one who would encourage us to draw, period, just to shut us up, But mom was reading it for a while. Then it got a little too tough for her. I blame Gilbert mostly. And I remember the day that I went over to her house and I was like, "Hi, Mom, what's new?" This and that. And she had my stack of Love and Rockets, and she goes, "I'm giving these back to you because I don't read them anymore," and stuff like that. And instead of going, "Mom, you broke my heart, my dream, my this and that," I was like, "Oh, too dirty, huh?" And so it's like, okay, so at least we know where Mom stands.
It's always nice to have your mom keep you honest.
Mm-hmm.
All right. On Instagram, Odin Cabal asked, "What do you do when you're having trouble resolving a storyline?"
I concentrate on the other story that I'm working on, and I get back to it later. It's always good to have two storylines going because, one's going to just stop you in its tracks. And that's why I have the Maggie Tonta stuff going at one part, and then I have the Princess Animus goofy science fiction stuff on the other side. Mm-hmm. And I get to, when I'm stuck on one, I concentrate on the other. It saves me time.
Right, yeah.
I hate to look at it that way, but, I am thinking about a deadline.
Yeah, and I mean, you're just staying efficient, at the end of the day. Yeah. So, last question brings it back to wrestling from Instagram user Mob Van Dam. Best suplex variation?
Wow, I don't know. Beside the fact that I don't know the names of them anymore, the names of all the moves that they've been given. I like when I discover them, like, wow, that's a good name or whatever. But so suplex, gee whiz, I'm stumped.
I'm partial to the classic German suplex. I think that it looks cool still to this day, despite being one of the oldest. Mm-hmm. Pins their shoulders to the mats, Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good one. We could say supplé,
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, cool.
My personal favorite would probably be the Saito suplex or supplé. Mm-hmm. It's a snappiness and intensity. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's something about that when it connects and that impact. I don't know. That really gets me.
Right. I guess I'm more partial to pile drivers.
Yeah.
It's a devastating move. Yeah, I mean that was like always the end all be all. I feel like for a while.
Right.
Yeah, that used to end matches. Now it's just starts matches.
Some guys do end it with a pile driver though, or some kind of pile driver variation.
But I feel like usually the characters that do that are like the old school characters. Like their character is supposed to be like a throwback.
Yeah, like Minoru Suzuki.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that about does it, for the questions. Before we do get out of here today, we do want to thank you so much for coming on, Jaime, and for participating with the Autoptic panel and discussions this year. Where can people find your work, keep up with you online?
Oh, I guess Fantagraphics.com. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just draw these things. But Fantagraphics will have just about all of it.
Okay, hell yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all, as always, for listening. Thanks to Autoptic for having us again this year. And as always, stay gutter.